Welcome to episode 2 of Learning Latvian through folk song translation. Today we're going to be looking at izjāju, prūšu, zemi. I rode through the Prussian land. We're just looking at a piece of the lyrics. The song is actually longer than this, but for the purposes of this lesson, this will be sufficient. We're going to be looking at a few different themes today. First, some obscure vocabulary. Then we'll be looking at additions or omissions of letters in folk songs that don't really change the meaning. And last but not least, you'll find that it's not always possible to create a truly reasonable, logical, direct translation of Latvian into English. So again, getting started, let's compare the original lyrics in Latvian to the English translation that I've prepared here on the right. In Latvian, what you see here on the screen is going to say, Prūšu meitas man gribēja pajunkuru paturēt, nepalikšu prūšu meitas man pašam kurzemē sētā jauna līgaviņa. And in English, that would be, the Prussian girls wanted to keep me as a nobleman. I will not stay Prussian girls. I have myself in kurzeme, and that repeats, and a young bride at home. Here you see that I've put in red a number of words. These, again, might be more obscure vocabulary, or they might be words that I'd like to highlight because they have more than one potential meaning. Running through them, you see prūšu, meitas, junkuru, sētā, jauna, and līgaviņa. Going through this list from start to finish, we start with prūšu, it means Prussian. And note that if we run into a noun on this list, I'm not going to tell you which case it's in. This lesson is intended for more intermediate or advanced learners, so you should be able to look at these words and identify what the case would be. So here we have a noun, meitas. You may have heard this word before meaning daughters. In this case, it means girls, so the Prussian girls. Junkuru, nobleman. Sētā, at home. And you may have heard sēta before as fence. Yes, it does have that meaning these days. A sēta would also have a maybe more obscure meaning as a household. A home, less in the sense of a house building, but more as a property or a set of buildings or a household. The word jauna can have more than one meaning. It can be either young or new. In the context of this translation, we really don't get enough information to know which one was intended. The speaker could have a young wife or a new wife. It's not clear. Last but not least, this word līgaviņa you will see a lot in Latvian folk songs. It means bride or wife. Turning next to this issue of omitted or added letters. My sense is that usually when these omissions or additions happen, they are done for the sake of rhythm or sound, and they don't change the meaning. So man would usually be mani gribēja. But let's see how it sounds. Prūšu meitas mani gribēja. No, that ruins the rhythm. Prūšu meitas man gribēja. Flows a lot more nicely. Similarly, man pašam kurzemē. It's a little clunkier just to say man pašam kurzemē, so that I can be added in for flow. Man pašam kurzemē just sounds better. You'll see these kinds of omissions or additions again a lot in Latvian folk songs. Last but not least, here you see that if we very literally just translate the Latvian words into English words, the result is somewhat silly or nonsensical. The Prussian girls me wanted as a nobleman to keep. I will not stay Prussian girls, for or to me myself in kurzeme, in the home a young bride. That doesn't sound so good. So there are a few changes that we inevitably have to make if we want to come up with a logical translation. One change that I ended up making was removing this man from the first line and adding it into the second line instead. I tend to like to be very literal with my translations, so it always pains me to have to do something like this. Clearly the me belongs in the first line, but really this change was necessary. So instead of the Prussian girls me wanted as a nobleman to keep, Prussian girls wanted to keep me. And that also brings up the word order change in the second line. As a nobleman to keep doesn't really sound that good in English, so we can just switch the word order to keep me as a nobleman. There is a different way of expressing that you have something in Latvian than you would use in English. So it's like to me there is this, for me there is this. So man pašam kurzemē, for me, myself in kurzeme, or to me, myself in kurzeme. Again, doesn't really work that well in English, so I've made a small change here. I have myself in kurzeme. It's also not the most streamlined solution that I could have come up with, but it lets me keep the pašam, which is like a myself. And then this last line also needs a word order change. It starts out in the home, a young bride, and in English it would sound much better as a young bride at home. So that was all that I had for you today. Hopefully now the decisions that went into producing this English translation on the right are clear, and I hope that this was helpful.